Welcome to the Beyond Woman Conversations. I'm Jacqueline Johnson, your host. Every week, we explore the conversations that help women to heal, grow, lead, and thrive. But before we begin, have you read the Beyond Woman magazine? Each issue features inspiring stories, practical insights, and powerful conversations designed to help each woman move forward with purpose and confidence. Visit www.thebeyondwomanmag.com to explore our latest editions and become part of our growing community. Now, let's dive into today's conversation. Today, we're having a conversation that every woman needs to hear. Many of us spend our lives caring for everyone else, our children, spouses, parents, businesses, and communities. But how often do we stop and ask, what would happen to the people I love if I weren't here tomorrow? And that is what we're talking about today here in the community. What happens if you're not here tomorrow? Not a comfortable question, but it's one of the most important conversations we can have. Research consistently shows that many families would face financial hardship within months if a primary caregiver or income earner were suddenly unable to work or passed away. Yet many women still delay conversations around life insurance, estate planning, and financial protection because they believe they have more time. The reality is that life can change in an instant. And today's guest understands that reality both professionally and personally. Bridgette Prendergast-Francis is a financial advisor and has been helping families build financial protection plans for the past 80 years. A nature lover and a mother of two, she's on a mission to bring hope and financial freedom to families through life's turning points by helping them understand the power of life insurance and financial planning. Her perspective became even more personal after a life-threatening experience forced her to confront a question many of us avoid. As a mother of a son with special needs, Bridgette found peace in knowing that if the worst happened, provisions had already been made to ensure he would be cared for. Today, we're talking about financial protection. We're talking about life insurance. We're talking about planning ahead, legacy building, and so much more. And most importantly, we're talking about why women must take ownership of their financial future. So to get us started, welcome, Bridgette. Sorry about that. Welcome to the Beyond Woman podcast conversation. How is it going for you?
Thank you so much, Jackie, for having me. It is indeed my pleasure to be on this program today.
Yes, and we're happy to have you as well because this is an important conversation and one that we really, really need to dig into. Right? So I want you to start off by sharing a little bit about yourself with our listeners who will be meeting you for the first time, of course. Who is Bridgette Prendergast-Francis and what led you into the financial services and life insurance industry?
So from I was a little girl, I was always best at quantitative subjects. So I really enjoyed solving mathematical problems in school. And so growing up, because I was that type of person, I knew from the get-go that, money was my thing. I loved money. I loved handling it. And I wanted to help people with money problems as well. And so I did my degree in finance and I started out in investment and banking. And then in 2018, I was looking for fulfillment and I decided I wanted a more flexible job and insurance is where I landed. And it has been good so far. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So in talking to you, I know that this matter of life insurance, this career path that you have taken is really personal, right? So I want you to share with us what really makes it personal for you, because a lot of us see life insurance as just a job, not really a career that one aspires to, a product. So I want you to share what makes it personal for you and at what point did you realize that what you're doing is really living out your purpose in helping to protect families and preserving their future?
Okay. So before I came into the life insurance industry, I myself would have experienced losing a brother, losing a father, and losing a friend to a critical illness. And so from an early age, I would say I would have learned the hard way of what not having financial coverage and the financial devastation that it can have on the family. And then coming into life insurance now and having my own experience of being there for my clients when they face the same financial issue. And so being able to say to a family member, don't worry, because your spouse or your mother or your father would have put something in place so that the financial burden is not so heavy. Because losing a loved one, it is so devastating, especially when you don't know how the person will be buried or how they will treat a medical condition. And for me, that gives me fulfillment, having dealt with it myself personally and now seeing what it can do for my clients.
A very good position, I believe, for one to stand on, especially if you feel very drawn to helping people and that really is your life purpose. And so I applaud you for that. All right, so Bridgette, you experienced a serious health scare that changed your perspective on life itself. Can you share what happened and what was going through your mind during that whole experience?
Okay, so I actually have two experiences that I want to share. So the first one is with my son. My son was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2020 during the pandemic. And he would have been in and out of hospital for over a year. And in 2021, he was hospitalized for 4 months straight. And the period where he was hospitalized for 4 months straight, the hospital stay alone was over $1 million. And the medication was over $3 million. So
Wow.
having financial coverage assisted me quite well. And so from that perspective, I would have known the beauty of having, life insurance and having that peace of mind that at the end of the day, I wouldn't have to pay the total sum. So that's from a health insurance perspective. Now, 2 years ago, exactly on June 4th, 2024, I met in a serious motor vehicle accident on the Mandela Highway. It was a head-on collision. And I've been in motor vehicle accidents before, but this one was the scariest because I saw what was happening and I couldn't do anything. And I basically thought this was it. I'm going to die. But luckily, I did not. And I just came away with a little scratch from the airbag on my wrist, my right wrist. That's all I have to tell the tale. And the goodness of God's mercy and grace and protection on me on that day. But after, calming down and everything, I started to think about what if the unthinkable had happened. And I felt a peace come over me because I was saying, whoa, my child who is on the autism spectrum, he goes to 3 different therapies on a monthly basis. And that alone is expensive. But I was comforted that if the unthinkable had happened, at least monies would have been there to assist him. So the goals and the dreams I have for him could still be realized whether I'm here or not. I mean, no amount of money can replace, a caregiver, a parent, but it makes the financial burden less. Because with children on the spectrum or any other child with special needs, what they really need is love, kindness, and patience. And after all of that, they need therapy. And therapy is no easy, cheap feat. And so I felt good when I went home and my husband and my older son was crying. I said, stop on the knives, because if I had died, you would have been rich. I was just trying to make the moment light, because life insurance, to be honest, is one way to build generational wealth. So I was thinking like an insurance agent. I wasn't even thinking that, I should just be jumping up and praising God for life. I was thinking about the fact that I had coverage and what this coverage would have done for them, whether I'm here or not. Their life, the continuity, the financial resources would still be handled. And for the first time, I got a picture of what it is, what it could have been like. And so I know when I go to my clients, I can say to them with confidence, having almost experienced it, I'm not just selling something, I'm selling a need, because I do believe that insurance is not just a want, it's a need. It's an investment in ourselves. It's an investment in our families, for those life turning points, whether good or bad.
Yes,
Thank
first of all, let me say I'm happy that you're still with us. You're above ground. And as you said, the only thing that you have or came out of that accident with was a slight scrape on your wrist, right? So I'm very
Yeah.
happy that you're still here with us, Bridgette. I'm also happy that you could find humor in the whole situation when you got
Yes.
home and you told them if anything else had happened, they would have been rich. So I love the fact
Yeah.
that you were able to find humor in there. And you talk a little bit about you mentioned this whole matter of generational wealth, and I want to touch on that briefly. Let's talk a little bit about generational wealth, because I don't think that is one of the points that comes out really as it relates to people buying life insurance. And for my listeners who probably are at a loss where this whole generational wealth is concerned, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. Life insurance provides a benefit of generational wealth, because the coverage that you take out on your life can be used for various things. For persons who may take out life insurance coverage for themselves and who don't have a family, when they get to retirement, they can surrender this plan and then use that money for their retirement needs. Additionally, for persons who are taking out life insurance for their families, this is one way to ensure that the legacy continues. Now, can you think about if, say, 5 generations before us, every single member of the family took out, for example, a $50 million policy, and that got passed on as a tradition, the wealth continues. And so the next generation doesn't have to have life as hard as the previous one.
And a lot of times they say, persons will probably say, there's no benefit to them. But as you speak about generational wealth, we can look at it, yes, and answer in the affirmative that, yes, maybe while you're alive, there's no need. The policy is not going to benefit you, but it will benefit someone else. It will be perhaps some peace of mind, as you mentioned earlier, as it relates to if you, the individual, get ill and then the burden is left on your family, where's that money coming from? So I'm happy that we're talking about the ease of burden, right? Even the ease of dealing with final expenses. So you don't have to be going around to family members to put together a basket then to take care
Right.
of final needs. So I am getting the sense, talking to you, I'm getting the benefits that life insurance can afford to persons once they take it out. You mentioned that when you paused after you had that accident and you paused and you thought about it, and then you realized that things were in place in the event something worse that happened, things would have been in place for your son. Your Joseph is his name, right? Let's use his name.
Yes, Joseph.
Joseph would have been taken care of. You talk about the sense of peace. For the woman who might have a child similar to Joseph, what are some of the things that you did? What kind of preparation are we talking about that you had made? And why would that have brought you comfort and peace of mind during as you thought about what could have happened?
Well, as a mother, and this doesn't have to include a child on the spectrum or a child with disability, we should always have that rainy day fund. Children do get sick, so I would have had rainy day fund set aside for him. I would have had his educational fund set aside. And of course, on my life, I have life insurance. So that would, as a parent, when I'm speaking with my clients, I always ask them how long do they want to take care of the child for. So say, for example, a parent earning $3 million per annum. And I would ask them how long they want to care for that child for. And most times they would say up to university, until the child has completed their first degree. So that would take the child up to, say, age 24. So that's 40. Say the child is 10 years old. That's 14 years additionally that they would be comfortable in caring for them, that now after their first degree, they can go on their own. So if the parent is earning $3 million per annum, then that's 14 times $3 million. That's $42 million coverage that they would want to ensure that they have for that child. So whether they're here or not, that same $3 million spread over the 14 years can do the same things that they're currently doing now. So that's one of the aspects that I would have ensured, that the number of years that I want to take care of my child, that would have been in place. Additionally, I ensure that he has health insurance, because not everything can be done at Bustamante. You may have to go to UAE, or you may have to go overseas. So you want to ensure that the child has health insurance as well, along with life insurance and investments and savings.
So
So
I'm listening to you, and it sounds like a lot. And I want you to, let's talk about how affordable this is. And I hope I'm not preempting anything further down, but for those who feel like this is out of their budget, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, start with what they can afford. It's always better to have some bread than no bread at all. I never grew up wealthy. I grew up very poor. And my mother would send us to the shop to buy quarter of bread, and it was 5 of us. And that quarter of bread would share. She would make porridge, and we pinch up the bread and put it in the porridge. And it was good to have that bread, right? So I always use that same analogy with my clients. Start with what you can afford. It's better to have something than nothing. And as you grow and age, you can buy more insurance, because nobody buys insurance over one period. As your life change and as your needs change, you tend to buy accordingly. So I say to my clients, start with what you can afford based on what is most important to you. If you're a parent, you need to have life coverage. You need to put something in place for later years when the children, that turning point of transitioning from primary school to high school to university, those things have to be in place. So it's best to start wherever you can. I start my clients with what they can afford, so as long as they're willing and they're committed, and this is of value to them.
So it's not just about selling a product, it is selling a need. It is selling a need and meeting you where you are.
Right.
I love that. So when you go to your client, you're doing, what is it called? Well, it's really financial planning, because
Right.
you are looking at what it is that they have and just fitting everything into their affordability. I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about the avoidance of the subject, right? Why do you think so many women avoid conversation? Well, I don't even know if I am assuming, I'm making an assumption. In your experience, is it that women avoid conversations about life insurance, about writing a will? Going into estate planning is a bigger undertaking, but just financial protection in general. What are some of the fears or misconceptions, if that's the case, do you encounter most often when relating to women, when talking to women?
I guess I'm a myriad of reasons, but there are a few that I must mention. Well, first and foremost, you see, insurance is a love game. So if you don't love yourself or you don't love anyone, you're not going to buy insurance.
Wow.
Because it is a commitment, So you really have to love someone or yourself to really buy insurance. But some of the common misconceptions are the reasons why people would not buy. The first thing someone may say is, only when we're dead. I have to
Yes, we
die
spoke
for
about that earlier. Yes.
So that's a misconception because they don't have the knowledge or they know the benefits of what insurance does outside of, loss of life. Some persons may not want to entertain a medical. They're afraid of needles. They're afraid of blood. They're afraid they may find out something and they rather not know. Or there's fear about people targeting them for insurance money. There's so many reasons, but those are usually, the ones that stand out. They don't see it as an investment in themselves or their families. They may see it as an expense, and the phobia surrounding the needle and the blood test and so on. Mammograms, pap smear, they say it is uncomfortable. And some of the policies that we have require those things. So when they hear that, they may be, uncomfortable with the whole thing, especially if they can't go to their doctor.
How do you help them over that hurdle?
Well, depending on the plan that they're taking out, I would try to, with regards to like a critical illness plan, the coverage on the non-medical plan is insufficient because it's only $10 million. And so I encourage them to buy more, especially if there is a health condition that runs in the family, such as cancer, because having financial protection gives you options, money gives you options, because in the event they're diagnosed, Jamaica may not be the best place to take care of or to find treatment. And so if you're financially covered, then you can say where in the world has the best treatment. And because you have the money, you can afford to go to a different country to get the treatment. So I get them to look at it from that perspective. The mammogram and the pap smear is not just for the plan, it's just for early detection to ensure that all is well with their bodies, because early detection is key. So I try to get them to see that as well. Critical illness has no regard for anyone, whether your age, how fit you are, your lifestyle, your heredity, or so on. So I get them to see that, anybody can be diagnosed with a critical illness. And so I try to get the clients to see that, taking these tests will help them, not just for taking out the critical illness plan, but so that they can know their health status. Because sometimes we look fit and healthy, but it's only when we do a blood test or other diagnostic test that we realize that something is off. Additionally, I just try to get them to see the different benefits of having insurance. And once I outline all the benefits, then they are able to make a more informed decision. Because there's a Chinese proverb that says, if you're planning for a year, sow rice. If you're planning for a decade, plant trees. But if you're planning for a lifetime, educate people. And once we have the knowledge and we apply it, we're not just helping ourselves, but we're creating education for those around us in our society and so on. So if one person knows when they're in their group, then they can also spread that information. When someone else is diagnosed and they had a plan, they will know, okay, I saw what happened to Susie and I'm so grateful she had a plan. Let me put one in place. Because to be honest with you, Jackie, I bought my first critical illness plan when a coworker of mine was diagnosed with cancer and passed at the age of 31 years. So from early in my 30s, I was also 31 at the time. So it was scary. And that's when I ran and purchased my critical illness plan. And that was long before I came into insurance. So sometimes just seeing things happening around us can create that awareness that we too must put things in place.
I love that, because I feel like we take life for granted. And, I'm always talking about it being intentional in life, right? And in saying that, it simply means that we have to be proactive. Yes, we don't know, today we might seem healthy and we take it for granted, but things can change. And I think you mentioned that earlier. Situations can change, circumstances can change. And so it is very imperative that we do the necessaries that we need to take care of ourselves in the event things change. So I want to talk a little bit about, what if I have had a plan for 20 years then? A critical illness. And you talk about critical illness. I hope that's not going over the head of anybody. Critical illness involves what, Bridgette? Your cancer, stroke, heart attack. You have coverage in the event you're diagnosed with those things and much more, right?
Right, right.
Right. So I am saying that if I have a policy, a critical illness policy, and I've been paying for 20 years and I have not been diagnosed with anything, I've passed the risk stage and all of that, can I get back something from the policy? Because a lot of times you mentioned also people are saying that it's not going to benefit me while I am alive. I know we probably don't need to be focusing on that, but for those persons who are thinking like that, is there any return to the individual?
Yes. Now, depending on the type policy that the client may have, because there are various types of critical illness plans, some that are for 20 years, some that pay out at age 75. Now, I know different organizations in Jamaica, their plans are different. If the client reaches age 75 and there is no claim, providing that all premiums are paid, then 100% of the premiums are refunded. There are also some plans like for 20 years, and after the 20 years, 50% of all the premiums are refunded to the client. So that can be like a savings, if they are not diagnosed with any critical illness over the life of the plan.
Well, there you go. I mean, treat it like, think about it. In the event nothing happens to me, it's a savings, right? But also, the point is that you could be, I don't think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. We don't need to go into the mathematics of it, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that you can be paying, say for argument's sake, you bought a policy today, and God forbid, 5 years down the road, you are diagnosed with one of the critical illnesses outlined. I don't think that your payments that you have made will equate to what is paid out for you to take care of your medical expenses and to give you this ease of mind.
Right. And that's one of the selling points that I use for my clients, that even if they were supposed to save, they wouldn't reach the coverage over the lifetime of the product.
And that is important, so we there are many ways that we can look at it, but I'm pretty sure that when yourself or any other financial advisor go and sit in front of the client, that all of that is discussed. I want to talk a little bit about, I want to go back to women, because this platform really focuses on women, right? And a lot of women are primary caregivers in their families. Unfortunately, but it is what it is. Once again, we need to be proactive. We need to know our situation and be proactive about it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the risks that families take when the woman who manages the household, well, it goes back to her, it's her decision. When the woman who manages the household, children, or even the finances has no protection in place. What are some of the risks that they're taking by not having that in place?
Well, from the financial aspect of it, there are 4 areas that we look at. We look at disability. In the event that the primary caregiver is disabled, if they retire, if they have passed, or if they are hospitalized, life
they
continues.
Just lose their job, right?
Right. Life continues. And so we have to ensure that, there is a backup plan, there is a plan B, and your financial portfolio is supposed to be that plan B. So your income, your job is your primary source, right? But what happens when life turns, when life changes? Your plan B is your insurance portfolio. Right? And so you want to have this peace of mind just in case something happens. I am still protected. My family is still protected. The bills can be paid. Life continues. There is no retirement light bill. There is no sick light bill. The bill continues. Everything continues. So we have to have a plan B. I say to my clients all the time, yes, you're fit and healthy and you're working and your job is your primary source of income, but what is your plan B? The beauty about life insurance is that it is immediate. So if you take out a $10 million policy, you're not paying this money on a monthly basis, hoping that it will get to 10 million over a period of time. No, you get that 10 million right then and right there. So we have to look into what if, the turning points in life. What if I lose my job? What if I'm disabled? What if I'm diagnosed with a critical illness? And what if I die too soon? Nobody knows the dash, how long
Right.
that will be. And so
Right.
we have to put things in place while we can. There's another Chinese proverb that says 20 years ago is the best time to plant a tree, but the second best time is now. So while we have the knowledge, while we're fit and healthy, now is the time to put things in place because nobody knows what tomorrow may bring. Life is fleeting, and so we have to take advantage of these things.
I love that Chinese proverb, by the way. But while you were speaking, what came to me was I think we need to talk a little bit about living benefits then. Because a lot of times when persons hear the word life insurance, immediately they think about death, right? And a while ago we talked about, or you touched on disability and loss of employment. So I'm assuming that when you sit in front of a client, that you go through the whole gamut of scenarios then. And so I wanted to touch a little bit on living benefits while you're living if you buy a policy.
So living benefits cover savings and investment. It covers disability. It covers being hospitalized for a minimum of 7 days or more. And it covers being diagnosed with a critical illness. So those are what we call living benefits. So it looks at liquidity, it looks at retirement, it looks at being diagnosed with a critical illness, as well as hospitalization. So those are the living benefits. Losing any part of your body, accidentally cutting off a thumb, a hand, things that occurred by an accident, so not naturally. I must point out though that if someone has diabetes and loses any part of their body, that would not come under the plan because it shouldn't happen naturally. It should be as a result of an accident.
Okay, okay. So we're still on okay, so if a woman listening today, let me ask this. If a woman is listening today and suddenly became unable to work or passed away unexpectedly, let's talk about some of the financial realities. I think we touched on a bit of it earlier on, but let's drill down a little bit. What are some of the financial realities her family would face? What are some of the expenses that families overlook, right? Outside of the funeral cost or the medical expense. What are some of the other financial costs that the family would face?
Well, if she had children or even just being a breadwinner, how do those persons continue life? So the coverage that she would have had would have been paid out to cover, apart from funeral expenses. If she had a child and the child's going to school, that monies could have carried the child for a period of years. If she had any loans, that money could have been used to pay off a mortgage, pay off any unsecured loan, pay off any car loan. For example, she has a property. And this is one that not most persons look into. I remember when I was a credit officer at the bank, from time to time, I would have clients come in to take a loan because they want to pay monies to do a transfer cost. So from time to time, a parent may have a house or any property, land or whatever, and they would have willed it to the children, but the children do not want to live in the house. They want to sell the property and split up the money. However, before they can do that, they have to pay the transfer cost, and a lot of times there's no money. And so they may have to come and take a loan. Now, if they had a life insurance policy, then some of that money could have been used to pay for the transfer costs of the property. So that's another area that we encourage our clients to look at.
Interesting. And that is a big cost. And that would
It is,
delay everything.
because it is based on the total valuation of the property.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
it
a
can
big
be a
one.
tidy sum.
That's a big one, Bridgette. What are some of the mistakes that we make as women as it relates to financial planning and protection? What should we stop doing immediately? Perhaps we are delaying making decisions. You mentioned that circumstances change, and so maybe a review of your policy or your financial portfolio needs to happen. What are some of the other mistakes that we make as women as it relates to
I
our
believe that
financial planning?
in terms of financial planning, we first and foremost must have a plan and put a time horizon on that plan. A lot of times I will ask my client, what are their plans for home ownership? And they say, yeah, I would want to own a home. And I ask them, what time frame would you want to, and what do you put in place? And they don't even realize that having that insurance plan is the first step, because the bank wants to ensure that in the event they pass, they don't have to sell the property. So having that insurance is the first step. And getting that out of the way instead of waiting until they're actually buying the property, then they have to go get insurance or take a creditor life insurance, which is a huge sum at that time when they've already have so much accumulated cost in getting the house. So that's one. Stop seeing insurance as an expense, because it is really an investment in ourselves and for our families. Another thing
And
is
loving ourselves, right?
yes, it's a part of loving ourselves. And if we love ourselves, we will put financial plans in place, not just for now, but for later, for retirement. One of the mistakes that we also make is that we think that our children will automatically take care of us. And so the little pension that we have, plus what we think our children would give us, is enough. But sometimes I'm seeing it now where children are not able to take care of their parents. Why? Because they're not in a financial position to do so. And so we have to ensure that we put plans in place to take care of ourselves when we get to retirement, in the event our children are not able to take care of us. So we have to plan for retirement. Survey has shown that for us to have a similar lifestyle to the one that we have now, at retirement, we need to be saving at least 20% of our annual income from the first day we started working. Not many persons know that. And they wait until they're 50 to start saving for retirement when it's too late. When you get to retirement, it will be so small that the little pension, you have to reduce your lifestyle, and you don't want to do that. You want to be living in style at retirement. And so that's another thing that we need to change. And we need to also ensure that we are taking the time to do our test, because early detection is key.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good points that we need to really think about. I love when you mentioned parents depending on children to take care of them. That is so in the past. These children, these generation, what is it? Generation what? Why?
Gen Z.
The Gen Z
and the millennials.
We cannot. So I love that you brought that in, the importance of us really putting plans in place to take care of ourselves and to maintain our lifestyle as much as we can. So if every woman who is listening today completed only 3 financial protection actions within the next 30 days, what would those be? What are your recommendations, Bridgette?
Well, I would recommend for liquidity, whether it is that dream vacation or for retirement, you have to have your life insurance and you have to have some critical illness, because we never know when life can turn for us, right? And so we want to have that peace of mind that if anything should happen to us, we're not left in a financial bind, or our families are not left in a financial bind. So putting that plan B in place for the what ifs in life. So those are the 3 areas I would look at. Family security, disability, and liquidity, continuation of income.
Okay. Awesome points. I want to end with what I consider to be a powerful question, right? You have personally faced the possibility that, well, not the possibility, the fact that tomorrow is not guaranteed, right?
Yes.
What would you say to the woman who is listening right now who keeps putting off these types of conversations? Persons like yourself reach out and we're not open to listening. We don't want to have the conversation. We don't want to make these kinds of decisions. What would you want her to remember based on all that we have talked about in this episode?
Just to remember that life is fleeting, nobody knows what tomorrow brings, but just to have that peace of mind that if something happens, you're not left in a financial bind, your family's not left in a financial bind. Because when you are grieving, having that peace of mind that you don't have to worry about the financial aspect of anything, it makes life easier. Having the confidence to be able to say how much will that cost? Because you have the backing for it. Instead of putting your hand on your head and wondering where you're gonna get the money from, you would have had it already because you would have passed on that risk to your life insurance company. So peace of mind is one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah.
Just think about it like at the end of the month when you can pay your bills, you can take care of your children, all your financial needs are met, and how good you feel. It's the same thing when a crisis hits. Just think about it in terms of how you want you to feel, how you want your family to feel, knowing that you would have put something in place and the financial burden stays with you. It doesn't have to be passed to anyone else because you would have been putting this money aside for the what ifs in life.
I love that. It's, putting yourself in the future, the frame of mind of seeing the future, and possible. I know it's difficult sometimes because nobody wants to think about, death or these what if scenarios, but it is the reality of life. And it goes back to us just trying to be intentional and being proactive about life in general, right?
Right.
You can even it can even go back to because peace of mind alleviates a lot of things, the stress, and we know what stress can do to our bodies. So it's so important just for us to look at all aspects of our life and to put the plans in place to mitigate any unfortunate situation then, so to speak, right? I want to end with what I call a rapid fire round where I'm going to ask you a series of questions and you tell me, and you just respond with the first thing that comes to your mind, right?
Okay.
So what one word comes to mind when you hear the word legacy?
Wealth.
Okay. What's one financial habit every woman should develop?
Saving.
What's one thing you wish more women understood about life insurance?
Peace of mind.
Well, that's a good answer because the next thing is what gives you peace of mind today?
Knowing that if something should happen to me, my family's financial future is secured.
Okay. And what does financial freedom mean to you?
Having the power to take on any financial need.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Bridgette, I want to thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with us about this whole matter of life insurance. I am left with the feeling that, it's not just pushing a product on anyone. It really is taking account of someone's needs and making sure that the solution that is offered to them is one that is suited for them. So it's not a one size fits all situation. You're really digging deep into the person's situation, their family life, what motivates them, maybe the family history in terms of the illnesses. You're really, really drilling deep down and coming up with a solution for them. And I also love the fact that you will meet persons where they are. So It is not necessary for us to overthink it. It's not necessary for us to think that it's going to be too much of a burden. As you said, it's not an expense. It's an investment, right? And so I love this conversation, and I'm really hoping that as the community listens, that they will, if they're not in the space where they are protected financially or with life insurance or even investment, whatever it is, that they will consider seriously and that they will do what they need to put plans in place to protect themselves as well as their family and to create and to create the generational wealth. I love that aspect of life insurance, because a lot of times we see other nations, let me use that word, where so much is passed on to the younger generation, but for some reason I'm not seeing a lot of that in our Black community. And I think that is something that we really need to consider. And as you said, it is an investment, and we need to invest in it for the future generation and to make life a little bit easier for them as well. So thank you so much, Bridgette, for coming on and for us to have this discussion. Of course, I'll put your details in our show notes where people can contact you if they want more information on this whole matter of financial planning. So I want to end with this note that the greatest act of love, and Bridgette, you said it, right? The greatest act of love is not only how we care for people while we're here, it is how we prepare for them if we're not. That was your experience.
Beautiful.
That was your freedom, Bridgette. I love it. Financial protection isn't about expecting the worst. It's about creating peace of mind, preserving dignity, and ensuring that the people we love most are protected no matter what life brings. And so today's conversation is a reminder to all of us, right, that every woman deserves to understand her finances, own her financial decisions, and put a protection plan in place that reflects the life she has worked so hard to build. Because protecting your future isn't just a financial decision, it's an act of love. Thank you again, Bridgette.
Thank you so much, Jackie. It was a pleasure being here and speaking about the issue.
Thank you for joining me for this conversation. If today's episode encouraged you, challenged you, or gave you something to think about, please share it with another woman who may need to hear it. And don't forget to visit www.TheBeyondWomanMag.com for more inspiring stories, resources, and conversations. Until next time, keep growing, keep becoming, and keep believing that your next chapter can be your best one yet.